welcome to this second session of the day. Scotland's got public service talent, and we are, well, you know, we try our best. My job today is to host this session and to say as little as possible and to provide as much opportunity as possible for you to question our 5-star pitchers. Almost felt like Mike McIntyre there. Our 5-star pitchers who are going to be pitching individual ideas on public service reform, and they have 3 minutes to make their pitch and not a second more. Well, actually might give them 10 seconds more. And once they've done that, then we'll open it out for, after each speaker we'll open out for a question or two. So you need to be quick if you want to get a question in, and once we've had 2 or 3 questions we'll vote. You'll have cards in front of you, a big yes or no, and so we'll take a vote on each idea after the questions for that particular idea, and we'll see where that takes us in terms of the popularity of each of the 5 suggestions. So I'll introduce the presenters as they come up to speak. I'm waiting for the first one to mosey up. And so the first presenter is Stephen Hagan, who is the leader of Orkney Islands Council, and Stephen is speaking on behalf essentially of the 3 Islands Council. I just want to make one correction in your programme. It says a single public authority for each of the councils and not one authority for all 3, and that was a key aspect of the work which we did. It's the key aspect of the work we did with the 3 Islands Councils. So over to Stephen.
Thank you. Good morning. In April this year, Orkney was visited by a team from Audit Scotland who were looking into the effectiveness of the community planning partnerships. Their verdict for Orkney was, you do it differently from anywhere else, but it works. Now, I'm not sure if that was a compliment, but we're right. Community planning comes naturally in Orkney. Agencies are small and the key people all know each other very well. Our common preoccupations bring us together, whether that be transport, connectivity or even the weather. When difficulties do arise in our partnership working, they can usually be traced back to legislative or governance issues at national level. For instance, not NHS Orkney is centrally directed from Edinburgh, unlike Orkney Islands Council, which has local autonomy. Well, I think we have local autonomy, although there's an issue with schools recently which is doubting that for us. We don't want to change the world, we just want to change how things are done in Orkney. It sometimes seems like to do that we also need to change the world as well. However, the Scottish Government has been bringing in specific pieces of legislation to clear the decks for the creation of business gateways and community health and social care partnerships. And it's obviously keen on local self-determination. And so we decided the time was right to take things a stage further. Now, Orkney has strong connections with both the Shetland and Western Isles councils, and we have many interests in common. But we should make it absolutely clear, as Ross has just alluded to, that this proposal is not about joining up services between the different island groups. We each have our own distinctive identity and culture. You try to merge Orkney and Shetland, it's like trying to merge Rangers and Celtic. But we're all equally interested in the concept known as a single public authority, which is that we should take community planning to its logical conclusion by creating a single body in each island group to provide the majority of public services needed by that community. After all, we're speaking about very small numbers here. Orkney has a total population of just 20,000, the other island groups slightly more than that. We don't need more than one public agency to do the job. So between us, we commissioned a piece of work last year from the Centre for Scottish Public Policy. We discussed a number of options within our community planning partnerships, and some of these were worked up into a proposal which formed part of our submissions to the Christie Commission. The proposal describes 3 models of integration, and the one that we like the best is which takes the form of a unitary island authority with a much wider scope of power and range of responsibilities than any of the existing public bodies. It brings together the community planning partners in institutional mergers, creating a new public authority for each island group. But the actual mechanics are the least important part of the proposal. We don't want to get hung up on governance. The reason why we want to do this is because we genuinely think It is the best way to ensure that islanders get the services they need for the foreseeable future, and that those services are led, managed and delivered in the islands. We've started a journey. There is leadership buy-in, there is trust and tolerance between the agencies, and the economic drivers are there as well. I believe that we have the ingredients for the public sector agencies in Orkney to work together as a single public authority for a better Orkney. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That was 3:25. So other speakers take note. Any questions for Stephen on that concept of the single public authority? Essentially bringing local government, health, transport, police, all these things together into one authority and providing a democratic legitimacy across the whole of the public service.
Nice idea, but what does it deliver? What's the outcome? What money does it save, or what money does it save, or what economic growth does it generate?
Well, as far as saving money, if you have a single authority, you don't need to have 4, 5, 6 chief executives, directors of finance and all that. So in the management side of the structure, you're going to save a lot of money there. But I think another aspect of it as well, which, you know, maybe to develop, is that we recognise that in the climate that we're in at the minute, there is a desire to make efficiencies, and one of the things is mooted about bringing councils together. Now that frightens the life out of us in a place like Orkney, because the Orkney economy depends on having these highly paid jobs in Orkney. We don't want our chief executive based in Highland Council or somewhere like that. So although we would be losing chief executives, we would be retaining these highly paid jobs within the council.
Sorry, I'll just project if that's okay. How do you manage the competing demands of councillors with a democratic legitimacy and for instance people from the NHS board with clinical priorities who might clash? Because when I'm from WRVS and we have a real interest in where social care ends up, and there's a lot of talk about lead commissioning and moving it further into the NHS and away from local authorities. So I suppose my question is, how do you manage those relationships where you've got people with different sorts of legitimacy, either democratic legitimacy or the legitimacy given by professional standing in the NHS or other areas?
The model that I'm describing does away with that, because you have one body that is democratically elected. So whatever the form takes thereafter, you could have a single public authority at the top, and you could have, you know, committees underneath. One could be health and social care, one could be infrastructure and transport, one could be education and learning, but they'd all be controlled by this single democratically elected body, and I think that's a key change to the NHS. And one thing that we've seen a sort of a move with the present government to have democratically elected people into the health boards.
Okay, thanks Stephen. Andy, just behind you.
Well, in a similar vein, how do you deal with the short-term nature of the political decision-making for local councillors versus the need for long-term strategic planning for care services?
In this new concept? Well, I can't see how things are going to change from there at present if you bring everybody. Surely that's going to make things an awful lot easier to do that.
If you have short-term decision-making, though, by politicians, versus the need for long-term planning.
Well, politicians are used to doing long-term planning as well. I mean, well, certainly Orkney Islands Council is. We are a strategic council. I hope that most councils are, because I couldn't comment on other councils, but we certainly are a council that looks long-term. I mean, our plans for the future in our community plan, which council leads, is up to 2020. So, I mean, we do that already. So I don't actually see a problem or an issue with that.
Sounds like a trip to Orkney required money. Anybody else? Final question? Okay, I'm going to move straight to the vote then. You all have green and red yes and no cards, so if you can shuffle around, grab them. And actually, I'm going to give you guys on the question. So, those in favour of the concept of the single public authority as outlined by Stephen?
Let's go for
That's fairly unanimous. Fantastic. Can we thank Stephen for his presentation? Okay, second up is Angela Leitch. Angela is currently the Chief Executive of Clackmannanshire Council. Scotland's smallest council, smallest mainland council, smallest mainland council. And Angela has a pitch to make on integrated services.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to come here today. Across the public sector, there's a lot of integrated and shared services taking place. Many of you will know about Cllr, where the purchasing across all 32 local authorities is trying to be combined and lever in greater efficiencies. There's other work underway, such as the work in Clyde Valley, that many of you will know better than I do. Locally, we have Forth Valley GIS, and we have shared services. We've now moved it to a different level between Clackmannanshire and Stirling in the last year, where we have seen two major services, the two major key services that we deliver in local authorities come together, one being education and the other being social services. If you're aware of what went on before, there was a lot of work went on between the two local authorities some time ago for a completely integrated management structure across the board. Politically, that was unacceptable. We've revisited it, taken advantage of an opportunity that presented itself last summer with vacancies arising in both councils, and now have moved to a situation where we have Stirling leading on education and Clackmannanshire leading on social services. I think, as Stephen referred to previously, one of the key things in that move was mutual respect and trust. And I think in any move to an integrated or shared service, one of the things that I would certainly pitch for is that it has to be a local solution for the local issue. Sense of identity has been really important in Clackmannanshire. As Ross has said, it's the smallest mainland local authority. The last thing that our communities would have wanted to see was that to be lost. So in moving to that shared agenda, it was a mutual respect, and that one local authority would be providing the lead on a key service, the other local authority would be doing the same. It wasn't a takeover, and it was important that that was seen to be the case. On the governance arrangements, the two councils retain the governance for these functions, and the management is joined. We're now at the stage where we have appointed two joint heads of service, one employed by Stirling, the other employed by Clackmannanshire, and we're in the process now of appointing our senior teams. The big thing for me is being clear about our purpose, and for us it was, yes, there were financial issues that we were both having to consider, but primarily it was an ambition for much, much better services across the board. And a vision that by bringing the capacities of the two councils together in these two areas, we could do an awful lot more that would improve our customer service and the outcomes for local people across the board. I think one of the key things for us then is in that sense of identity. I think we're past the point of no return within the two local authority areas, and we will make sure that it works for us. Thank you.
As everything's efficient, 2:45, like that. Okay, questions to Angela on integrated services, and in particular that aspect of bringing frontline services together, education and social care.